everyone. I'll be presenting my stories on Indigenous Devbhumi with respect to environment. So I thank all my gurus for this, and thank you, Nagraj sir, for giving me this opportunity. So let's travel deep into the roots of indigenous environmentalism in the Himalayas. So I'll start with explaining the Devi Devta Sanskriti of Himachal Pradesh and how these forms have been the most ancient forms of worship even before uh, the establishment of scriptural knowledge. So the Devi Devtas are not just spiritual institutions in Himachal Pradesh, but they also govern political and social systems. These traditions regard certain trees, plants, rivers, water bodies as sacred. So devtas are elemental forces. They have a divine right of kingship. So they are the rulers. They give out Bharata, which is an oral tradition which has been passed on from one generation to another. And these Bhartas are narrated by the Gur, who is the medium for the Devta. Now, these Devtas are the guides and lawmakers, and they own all the Dev Bans, the sacred grooves, and they all have been under the Devta's maintenance and at the cost of the Devta's temple in these vanas. These messages are communicated to the community in Dev Bhasha and in oral constitution called Kars and Antars. So, if you look into the forest spirits, it's a category in itself. You have seer spirits called Banbirs. Chugna is the walnut tree spirit. Khicheral is a spirit that's found in the cheel trees, and Batal is the water spirit, and Sabai is the moss spirit. In these forests, you also have goddesses called Joginis who protect the forest from all kinds of dangers. And every single devta in Himachal Pradesh would have a powering Jogini. These Joginis are the Shaktis of each devta, and their significance is I mean, it's very important to have Joginis. Without that, the devtas cannot function. Then we have the Yakshas, who are malevolent spirits, but they are not as malevolent as human beings. These Yakshas control the forest after a certain time. So in the evening, you cannot go to the forest late in the night. So there are some rules that are laid out. And Gung is the disease spirit. So Gungs can catch you if you have violated the rules of the forest. This is one aspect of how the devtas channel themselves. This is one of the Devbans of Jamdagini Rishi, and the rules laid out by the Devta are very important, and nobody violates it. It's not allowed to even pick a single leaf or a fallen branch or even pine cones from the forest. This is a way to maintain the ecology of the forest. Then you have the Devta committee. They manage all the duties with respect to the Devbans, and they are the mediators between the Devta and the people. Let's look at the traditional systems of forest management. These are rakas. They are called rakas. They are the forest guards who were traditionally appointed by the villagers to maintain the devbanas. And now, after the colonialization, they work alongside the forest department. So this is an example of how a traditional system has been incorporated into a on a governmental level. So let's look into folk traditions and rituals on forest management. One such ritual is that of the gaddis and the shepherds. So charna is about grazing rites and rituals because the local communities rely on forests for their livelihood. So it's important for them to put an invite to the devta and ask them if they can go grazing with their cattle. And if the devta rejects any such activity, then they cannot go. This is done so that uh, herbs are not picked before time, and mountains are not visited when the weather is rough. So this is actually in benefit of the community. There is a special ritual called Nyandara Dena. Nyandara involves giving an invite to the herbs, to the forest lands before you enter the forest. And once you get the approval of the plant kingdom, you are free to graze. And the grazing happens in a phased manner. So you have one section which is reserved for a particular a team of shepherds, and the other area is reserved for another team of shepherds. This is so that there is no imbalance and overgrazing. The There are also sacred water bodies and mountains associated with devtas, such as the Parashar Rishi Lake or the Byaskund, uh, and the Chandratal, which is to do with an elemental devta, the Chandra Dev. And you also have Suraj Tal, which is to do with the sun god. So we look into how Devi Devtas are associated with environment. So Devta Banshira is regarded as the god of the forest, and he's worshipped like uh, for to keep the forests alive. Another notable like mention is for Devi Hadimba. She's regarded as the tribal queen of forests. Devi Sandhya Gayatri is actually the fertility goddess. Fertility not only like in terms of a fertile land, but also a fertile mind and a fertile heart. So the rituals of seed sowing in the valley, the first rituals, they happen here, and the Devi suggests where you can plant the seeds and which is the right time to plant seeds. So she's actually the Vidya behind sowing of seeds. With respect to the environment, the Nag Devtas are also very important. They are highly revered because they warn people about disasters, and they warn the community regarding any imbalance that they have sensed in the environment. So every year at Goshal village, there is a ceremony of Devta Kana Nag, a serpent god, alongside Gautam Rishi and Vyas Rishi. They sit together, and there is a pindi that is made. Around that time, nobody disturbs the earth. Uh, no seeds are sown. Uh, no farming equipments are used. So after a month, this pindi is opened, and you you get all the answers to what is going to happen that year. So most of the events are predicted. Even the floods of 2018 was predicted by Devta Kanana, the Devta. Then comes the Bijleshwar Mahadev. He's the lightning god, and they say that all disasters that come upon this state, uh, the energies are absorbed into Bijleshwar Mahadev, and his pindi cracks when there's a serious disaster. So let me take you through some important case studies, real case studies on environment that where Devi Devtas have intervened. In the year 2006, Watermiller Company had a tiff with the Devtas, wherein they lost a hydroelectric project because Devta Vashisht and Devi Jogni uh, rejected the project during a communal pooch. Pooch is a ceremony wherein the Devtas speak to the community, and they give out their decisions through their channels. Then later, there was a ski project proposed by the Ford Group, which was rejected by the Devi Devta Sansad, which is the board of Devtas. And they cancelled the project on the grounds of environmental degradation in the mountains. Then another successful story is that of the Great Himalayan National Park and the Devtas of that valley, of Banjar Valley and Kulu Valley. They, they, they supported the government in implementing these laws by speaking to the local community about the importance of forests and reserving them as an eco-sensitive zone. Then comes another episode, which is to do with the NGT. So the National Green Tribunal was also supported by the Devtas. In fact, Devtas like Nag Dumbal and Vashisht Rishi have punched holes on walls of illegal constructions. So NGT was about taking out and clearing all these illegal constructions in the valley, because it was impacting the environment. So in Himachal, the Devi Devta culture came from elemental worship of Panchatattvas, which is and the scriptures came much later, and a lot of tribal uh, and nature centric gods were then put into a context of the uh, Vedic requirements. So Sandhya Gayatri is basically the meditative state uh, of Saraswati. So there have been a lot of changes how these tribal gods were put into a Vedic uh, bracket. So these are some of the festivals that are celebrated. The worship of Chula Devi, the household fire. Fagli is a celebration of Agni Devta during winters, and they pick herbs from the forest and they wear these garlands, and the Devta channels himself through the gur and communicates with the community. Then you have Choti Diwali. It is a festival of forgiveness and ahimsa for all beings. So this is an interesting festival that that is unique in that sense that this festival involves singing songs with cuss words and giving each other cuss words. This is done so that you release your bitterness and anger and resentment towards someone, and this day is the opportunity to do that. And the fire is lit so that you get over this resentment and start on a fresh note. It believes in the community as a whole believes in forgiveness and ahimsa. Now,
Yes, Ji, are we moving towards the conclusion soon?
yes.
Thank you.
So now we'll be looking at some folk practices that honor nature. Uh, these are like practices that have existed like for like generations, and you don't find them in books. One is Nyandra Dena, an invitation to the plant kingdom before plucking them or uprooting them, or using them for rituals. The second thing is you are not allowed to go cut trees on certain days. Like Guruvar, you cannot cut trees. And you can only cut a tree if it has been approved by the Devta. Then you have dances for animal spirits, such as the Horan dance, which depicts a story of like sheep and a monkey in the jungle, and uh, these are like spirit dances that are performed on certain occasions. Then, if you look at art, the Kangra form of miniature art involves using natural paints picked from the atmosphere, picked from the environment. Uh, it uses bojpatra as the canvas, and certain stones are ground into pigments. Uh, for example, there is a particular cyan color which requires uh, a certain set of herbs to be soaked in a sick cow's urine for 3 months to get a particular color. So these have existed for a long time in the tribal cultures. Then you have lamans and the natis. These are the musical forms and also the dance forms. Uh, when it comes to traditional attires, they are sourced from nature. So wool from the sheep is actually used. Uh, commonly like across Himachal. There is no other fabric that you can think of when it comes to Himachal Pradesh. And grass shoes, so that they keep your body temperatures warm. And it is proven that wool keeps your body temperatures high, and it is also like a metaphysical protective agent. Uh, and it's associated with Lord Shiva. So this is one of the spirit dances. Bazantri is the local like traditional folk music. So in these societies, they were always focused on self-sustenance. How they take care of the cows would take that would determine how well their crops grow, and it's a cyclic codependency. These are the traditional homes.
Divya ji, we have 1 more minute, I think. We have to wind up very quickly.
So Dev Rishi Trust is one of those protection groups who have been reforesting the areas, because an ancient rule of the forest says that if you take a tree, you have to grow one back. And they have been involved in community forestry and efforts of reforestation. So these are some of the initiatives that were made on the basis of indigenous knowledge. That those are Gucci mushrooms. They have medicinal qualities, and the bronze flower, and the lingri, which is the pinwheel fern. So this is a list of indigenous herbs with metaphysical properties, like betel. No ceremony happens without juniper and gugiban. Genda is also like a very sacred flower. It keeps away evil energies. Bichu butti is used for like warding off all sorts of bad luck while you are traveling in the mountains. And Hanumanda Lingna is also one of the important herbs used in cleansing and as a cleanser and as a protective agent. And of course, we all know about Vijaya, which is widely popular in the Shiva temples of Himachal Pradesh. So these are the herbs and plants and trees that have been.
Thank you very much. If you can come to the last slide, end slide, and
Yes,
get
yes.
to the conclusion, we'll be very glad.
Yeah, yeah. So these, sorry to interrupt, but these herbs have been recommended by the local communities, and now Forest Department is actually in consultation with the communities to come up with photo mediation projects. So my learnings from this is like, look at this whole exchange as we being the purusha, the ones who are the kriyabans, and we can actually adapt the sentiment of trees as a life giving force than a life taking force, and incorporate the spirit of ekameva advityam. So we don't exist without nature, and nature is a part of us, so we have to look at it in that sense, and adapt a and adapt a feminine approach to life, and go back to the roots, because there's invaluable wisdom in indigenous knowledge. And it all starts when we heal ourselves, we can impact change around us. So when we talk about environment, it is not only about the ecological environment, it's also about our inner environment that creates the external environment, and hence the ecological environment. And we have to acknowledge that there's more to life than what we see and what we perceive. And we have to acknowledge this metaphysical dimension to life, um, so that we see that impact on ecology. And thereby I conclude this.
With that fascinating presentation about Devabhumi, which makes us proud, all Hindus, as a very, very proud man with your presentation. We would like to be there. Hope you would host us all for having a direct experience.
Sure, sir. But I want to, like, I just want half a second. Uh, and this is a laman which is sung in for the nature gods.
Yeah, please, please.
Asamiya, o revo samiya, revo sami apne udaro, o bhole ao samiya re. It's dedicated to Lord Shiva. The Lord Shiva and Gaddis have a very deep connection. So it is said that a Gaddi is blessed with uh, the knowledge of mountains, the knowledge of herbs, and also he has the blessing of fire. So even if the weather is terribly bad, he has the sadhana, and he's been blessed with the sadhana to worship fire at all times.
Lovely, lovely, ma'am. We'll now close this session now.
Yes.